What did you think of the university's response?
I think the university responded in a very swift manner to these allegations brought forward. The students were taken into counseling, as in the young lady was taken into counseling, and the respective persons were also being spoken to, and the matter was investigated immediately.
What is the kind of, how would you describe the culture on campus in relation to issues of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence?
So, in terms of this university, we are not in support of any violence of any nature, especially towards persons of various genders or anything like that. We do believe that persons ought to be treated fairly, equally, and don't deserve to be violated or harmed in any way. So, as a university, we also try to promote something of like a bond between residents on various halls, within faculties, so that persons can rely on each other, depend on each other, and also so that they can speak to each other if they have any issues or if they have something like this that is pressing. They would have also developed relationships with persons in various administrative capacities, whether it be in your halls or faculties, but more so in your halls, because those are the persons who you would interact with on a more personal level.
What about on hall? What steps, if any, are taken to inform students who, you know, what is expected, and if there is a problem, who do they turn to?
All right, so I can speak for Preston because I'm Preston's hall chair. During our orientation, we always do this thing known as, well, we have pressets and pressmen before they become Prestonites. So pressmen are are male freshers, and pressets are female freshers, and each pressman is assigned presets that he watches over. He ensures that he follows them if they need to go somewhere, and he's basically their guide and protector for the orientation period. So we instill in our young men that you are responsible for our women, you're responsible to protect them, but also to ensure that they feel safe when they're going anywhere. Throughout orientation, they interact with many members of the hall committee, and they would know that if they have an issue such as this or any issue at all, they can speak to their student leaders. But if it is something that is very private, they can come to their hall chair or their deputy hall chairperson, and they can also speak with resident advisors who are part of the hall's administration, and also their student services and development manager. Those persons now will be able to direct them, for example, to our counseling units and other units on the campus that will be able to deal with these matters of sexual abuse or assault or that nature.
Is there anything else you would like to see in particular to strengthen the systems?
I can say that for our systems here on campus, in terms of when students experience these traumatic things, it would be better if the response time, while it is quick or fast, it can be quicker. Students are, as it relates to persons identifying these things, I think students ought to be more aware of which specific individuals and which specific offices on campus they can go to. Because we can speak to our resident advisors, our hall managers, and our student leaders, but if a student feels more secure going to these offices, I believe that they should know more about them, know direct people who they can email or call. So we do have a hotline, but I don't think many of our students know these telephone numbers because information gets passed through many different channels and it becomes lost. So having these contact information probably posted on every block or cluster, that would assist students in reaching out to persons, even if it's just in the middle of the night and they want to speak to someone.
In November, the Mayor Sequel Hall would have their safe space where women would come out and they share their stories, and they would be sensitized on what, the different acts of violence, intimate partner violence, acquaintance rape, which is very much undermined and misinterpreted a lot, as well as we had a campaign, the Clothesline Project, where we put, these issues out there for persons to know that we're not creating this atmosphere of silencing these things and that we're here for them and we support them. So moving forward, I believe that the other halls of residence, they can have these campaigns really to really sensitize the other students on what consent is and really morals. And as a guild councillor, we see where we had this campaign in the past, which is still ongoing, which is never asking for it or not asking for it, where we sensitize persons on what consent is. So more of those things can come into play and to have persons to be more aware.
So When people share their stories with you, what do you hear women saying about what happens to them on campus? I mean, are those complaints you've got?
Yes, through the Mary Seacole Hall Safe Space and other, hubs where women will come together and share. Um, it varies. We have a host of different things happening, like catcalling. We have harassments. Someone will try to, touch places they shouldn't touch just simply because they're polite, and these things are not supposed to happen. And even on House of Residence, we have a history or a high statistics of students being harassed and they do not know that it's harassment because they weren't taught. So, yeah, those are the things that we have.
Tell me what you mean by that. They don't know it's harassment because they weren't taught.
All right, so on the topic of intimate partner violence or acquaintance rape, there's a climate surrounding that topic that you are only raped by someone you do not know. And it goes back to consent, because if you do not understand what consent is, then you won't call it as it is, which is acquaintance rape.
As a student leader, what's your reaction to these reports and allegations that we've heard of?
To be honest, it's shocking. No one would expect that on campus a female will be held against her will for 3 days. It's not a day or a few hours, 3 entire days. And then the overall way in which it was handled by administration, I wouldn't say it would be the best in regards to how the information was shared to the student body and to the external entities, because for the most part, we had to rely on external media entities to be provided with updates. So it was shocking, and the overall handling of it was, I believe it went terribly wrong.
How do you think it should have been handled, especially in terms of information flow?
So I can understand that it's a sensitive matter, and you must take into consideration the victim. And so after having conversations with the family, the victim's family and so forth, I think the first point of contact after you've handed it over to the authorities would be to basically update the student body. We should have heard it from admin maybe a day or two after it happened that, hey, this happened, this is how we're handling it, so that we can have full confidence in administration that it is being handled properly. But the way in which it was handled, it was a lot of days afterwards. We keep hearing different things, and then we see it in the media that this happened, and then it was a few days after it came out in the media, administration decided to get in front of it. So that's a no-no from me.
The concern, though, is that outside of this particular incident, that there have been domestic violence or intimate partner issues on campus for a long time, especially on halls, and that there's a culture on hall that allows or facilitates that kind of negative interaction. So what do you respond? How do you respond to that concern?
I wouldn't say there's a culture. The reality is that halls are a melting pot. So you'd find individuals coming from a myriad of different backgrounds. And so when they get here, whatever background they came from, that's the background they're bringing here. So I think the onus is now on halls to seemingly try to reshape or change the psychological mindset of that individual, particularly Chancellor Hall. On Chancellor, for this year, I can speak of that the resident advisors and the SSDM and the hall committee would be engaging the student body. In fact, this year we have about 80% first years, so FYE is very much important. And so at FYE, we speak a lot about gender-based violence.
Sorry, what's FYE?
First year experience. So we speak a lot about gender-based violence. We try to ensure that we have professionals in the field coming in. We put in place measures to prevent it from happening, and we try to create a safe environment so that the mans can feel what a safe environment is, so they know how to protect it and they know how to go out after they leave Chancellor and create safe environments in whichever areas that they fall into.
I think I speak for myself and other student leaders when we say we're disgusted and we're appalled by the news. it came as a shock, and we couldn't believe that this type of incident could happen at the university. But the main focus is ensuring that it doesn't happen again.
Well, let's talk about that a little, because there have been concerns expressed for years about gender-based violence, intimate-based violence on the UWI campus. So, for instance, when you speak about it never happening again, what kind of mechanisms now exist for students? Say if somebody on your hall is a victim of gender-based violence or intimate partner violence, do they know what to do?
I think that's one of the main things that we have to do to ensure that it never happens again, or if it happens, what we can do to ensure that the student themselves is protected. I think we need to establish clear channels, and these students are informed, so do an information-based program to advocate and advertise the channels, the proper channels to report incidents like this with sincere discernity, so to speak.
So one of the issues, for instance, is because you speak about the channels. So what channels are there that students should know about?
So there's actually a hotline that is operational. There's also the channel of going through the UWI Guild, and there's also the administration themselves. They go to, I believe, the SAS building, where there's a representative there to speak about such matters. But there's naturally channels through the halls, so your hall chairman, your deputy, your SSDM, your RAs.
Spell out those for me, for my list.
Sorry. So Student Services Development Manager, that's the person in charge of the hall. Your resident advisors, these are members of the administration for the halls. So they're specifically involved with whether it's a tower, a block, or the specific representations of the hall, and your hall chairman and your deputy, members of your council.